The year has just begun, but the Commission on Elections' hands are already full amid new developments 4 months before the 2022 elections. On top of the agenda, the final list of candidates to be announced this week, shrugging off the standard-bearer Les Duterte-led PDP Laban faction's request to reopen the filing of certificates of candidacy. Also on the table, the preliminary conference on the disqualification case filed by the Akbayan Party list against presidential aspirant and survey frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr. With Comelec Chairman Sheriff Abas and 2 commissioners stepping down next month and the recent rise in COVID-19 cases again stoking fears, what should Filipinos expect come May 2022?
Good evening, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. We apologize for coming in a little bit late. We've had a little bit of technical difficulty, but anyway, our first guest tonight, Commission on Election spokesperson James Jimenez. Good evening, I was about to say Commissioner, Spokesman Jimenez. Let's begin with this. That petition to reopen yung filing ng COC that happened last October, first week of October 1 to 8. Pagbibigyan ba yan ng Comelec?
Sorry about that. Good evening, Pia, again. Medyo unlikely na mapagbigyan yan, ano? Kasi masyadong maraming konsekwensya yung pagpapa-reopen ng ating filing ng COC. Remember, just apart from the fact na ang haba-haba na ng binigay na period for filing COCs, kung uulitin mo yan ngayon, hindi naman isang partido lang ang magte-take advantage niyan eh. Lahat. So basically, yung buong October 1 to 8, parang inulit mo na rin. Which also means lahat ng screening na ginawa natin from October 8 up to this point, parang baliwala. Kasi magkakaroon ka ng panibagong mga aplikante, bagong filing eh. So, ang daming epekto niyan, no? Down the road. Sabi nga nung mismong petition, humihingi din sila ng postponement ng filing ng balota. And that would probably be a logical conclusion of that. So, makikita mo kung gaano karami ang gagalaw na mga activities ng Comelec dahil dyan.
And of course, that will push back the schedule of the polls itself, which is the object or the target of this motion to postpone until 2025. Is that something that the Comelec will even consider? Pag-uusapan pa rin ba yun sa isang NPAC session? In other words, are you going to devote time and energy to that, to considering that petition?
Well, of course, it will have to be discussed. But again, as I said, my reading of the commission is that this is unlikely to pass.
All right. Itong final list of candidates, no, this is going to come out when? January 7 ba?
January 7 ang target po natin, and we're still on track for that.
All right. And the final list of party list candidates already out, and final na yun, wala nang babaguhin dyan kahit ano pang sabihin ng iba pang party list groups.
Unfortunately, wala na po. Yan na po yung ating nilabas na listahan at yan na po ang susundin natin.
Okay. This petition to disqualify former Senator Bongbong Marcos, there are spokesperson James Jimenez, a total of 6 cases filed against Senator Bongbong, but the second one, filed by Tiburcio, a so-called Tiburcio Marcos, was already cancelled or was already dismissed, correct?
It has already been denied. Denied. Dismissed na po yan. So, okay. Marami na rin na-dismiss, 2-3 na ata ang na-dismiss. Yung kay Lihay-Lihay, and then itong kay Tiburcio.
All right. And of course, everyone is looking, like you were saying right before the show, the entire Comelec preparing for the January 7 preliminary conference on the Akbayan DQ case against BBM. This is interesting. No? This is the first time na mala-live stream ang isang Comelec deliberation. Is that right? And why?
First time po ito. At sa tingin ko sa pananaw ng division, mas makakabuti sa proseso kung marami makakita kung ano yung mga pag-uusapan. No? The division wants to have maximum transparency in this particular case so that the people will not be left questioning what happened. So magkakaroon tayo ng live stream, again, as you said, for the first time.
All right. At may threat pa si Commissioner Guanzon, that she throw in jail anyone who will be in contempt, who she will find in contempt. At sabi pa niya, 48 hours pa raw.
Yes. Yeah. Usually, ang contempt, well, may contempt powers naman talaga ang Comelec, and 48 hours is the usual period of confinement pag nako-contempt.
Okay. And syempre, like she said, dapat yung mga abogado daw, both sides, sabi niya, to come prepared.
Dapat best behavior, Ms. Pia.
Best behavior and prepared. Dapat lang. Anyway, James Jimenez, we're going to speak to you again on the show a little later in the final stretch, but we'll be taking a very quick break for now. Stay tuned. This is Politics as Usual. The tandem of Senator Ping Lacson and Senator Tito Soto say the Senate can elect a new leader who will serve as acting president if the 2022 elections will be postponed. Joining us tonight is Senator Amy Marcos, chairperson of the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation on this and much more. And of course, needless to say, she is, of course, the sister of former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Ang dami pwedeng pag-usapan. Buti na lang, ang ganda ng timing ni Senator Amy na mag-guest sa show. So, Senator Amy, let's begin with this, dahil ang pinag-usapan kanina with James Jimenez ay mga kaso nga against sa kapatid mo. So, let's talk about that first. There are, 6 cases, 1 down, 5 to go. In the long run, what do you think really is going to happen to all these cases against you?
Yes, of course, I've been working with the Comelec very closely since I became a senator and the chairman of the electoral reform. So firstly, let me say that I trust in the Comelec's fairness, and I am certain that the rule of law will prevail at the end of all that. On the other hand, let me also say that I think it is most important that we allow the will of the people to be heard. Sundan natin ang kagustuhan ng taong bayan sapagkat itong mga sinasabi nga nila, mga kaso, mga technical obstacles that are being put in the way may eventually result in an assault on the credibility of the electoral process. That would be the worst thing that could possibly happen, resulting in instability in already very anxious times.
Mm-hmm. So you are, Senator Amy, if I'm not mistaken, you are for the holding of the May 9, 2022 elections and no postponement, no moving of the election calendar whatsoever.
Yes, as President Duterte has said repeatedly, the elections on May 9 will proceed in accordance with law and with the Constitution. And I think it must be so. Certainly, any effort to derail that schedule, which the Comelec cannot even postpone, not even a new law can change that because it is written very clearly in our Constitution. Anything that endangers that will be in violation of the Constitution. Nabubuhay tuloy ang kung ano-anong chismis at haka-haka na may isisingit daw ng mga bagong kandidato. Bakit hindi naman linagay noon pa? There was such a long period, as Mr. Jimenez has stated. Why wasn't it filed at that point during the timely period? At nabubuhay tuloy ang nakakatakot na multo ng Noel or no election na ayaw natin na mangyari. Higit sa lahat, many of those on the administration side have said to me, hindi ba Marami naman ang administration candidate. We are one political family, even if there are many candidates today. And like every family, there are grudges, there are hurts, there are roiling resentments even. But instead of dragging them to Comelec and the courts and confusing people, why is it that we just do not talk about it like a family around the kitchen table? It is a family, after all, that surrounds the president, and there are no sins that cannot be forgiven in this kind of political family. Siguro, as the Pope said in his Christmas message, it is time for dialogue, for transparency, for openness, and a generous heart.
No sins that cannot be forgiven. What exactly are you referring to, Senator Aimee?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, you said no sins that cannot be forgiven. What exactly are you referring to?
Well, marami kasing nagsasabi na iba-ibang paksyon na nagkasakitan na, nagkasalitaan na ng masakit, may mga maanghang na salita na nabitawan. Wala namang problema yun, di ba? Tiisan tayong lahat. At the end of the day, we all fully support the president, his agenda, and the continuance of his exemplary projects and programs.
Mm-hmm. Senator Aimee, I know you said earlier na in no way should or can the elections on May 9, 2022 be postponed. However, if that theory of a scenario of the no-L situation happens, even without an election, si Ping Lacson and Tito Sen, Tito Soto have said na posible pa naman magkaroon ng acting president dahil meron pa rin beyond June 30, 2022, meron pa rin 12 senador. And one of them is you, who are incumbent until June 30, 2025. So if that situation happens, yung 12 senador na yon na incumbent ay pwedeng mag-elect ng Senate President who can be acting president. That is in the law anyway, right? In the Constitution. So it is possible.
Yes. Theoretically, what would occur then is that succession law, or the laws on who will succeed the president in the event of a vacuum, will take place. And hindi na election law, kundi succession ang magte-take over dahil hindi nagkaroon ng election. This is something that we really do not want to happen, but theoretically, indeed, this could occur. And any of the senators who are able to sit until 2025 could possibly be elected as Senate President. Pero sana hindi ito mangyari. Alam na natin na napakahirap ng panahon. Meron pang Omicron ulit, na COVID na tayo, pagkatapos tinamaan pa ng Odette at sari-saring mga pinsala. This is really the time for credible and strong and united leadership. We simply cannot afford to defer the election against the Constitution.
Agreed. The elections must push through May 9, 2022. Your brother, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, has been doing very well in pre-campaign surveys. Do you think this is going to hold when the campaign, whatever form it takes, depending on the pandemic? Will this kind of survey ranking still hold during the campaign?
Well, as I've said before, these surveys come as a complete, if pleasant, surprise to all of us. We are humbled by the extraordinary support that my brother has received. But like you said, anything can happen in an election. And certainly, this is the first national election we are conducting under pandemic conditions. Even the Comelec, it's still a work in progress, exactly what will be done and what will be allowed, because the Omicron, for example, has become a game changer and has literally become so infectious that perhaps these campaign activities that we are so traditionally accustomed to cannot be embarked upon any longer.
And of course, everybody's hoping for a good voter turnout, kahit papaano. But like you said, Comelec's still working on this parang matuloy at hindi ma-frustrate ang will ng taong bayan. But I wanted to ask also, because you say your brother's performance in the surveys has come as a pleasant surprise to you. But what do you think? I'm sure you guys, your family has been talking about this, the campaign, the Marcos Duterte campaign. Why is he doing well in pre-campaign surveys? Is it because there is this so-called nostalgia for the Marcos years, which, marami ding galit sa ganoon, yung mga people who don't like you, who don't like your family, and don't believe in your father. Is it, as one analyst has said, is it democracy fatigue? Pagod na ang tao sa demokrasya, which is kind of insulting also to your family because parang they think that you are anti-democratic, right? Or is it also the feeling, is it a Pinoy thing na ang gusto ng tao mag-ama na presidente? So may Diosdado Macapagal, may Gloria Macapagal, or mag-ina na naging Pangulo, may Cory Aquino, may Noynoy Aquino. What is it? Why is he doing so well in surveys?
Well, I think perhaps there is some nostalgia for a simpler and more prosperous time. We've been through a hellish 20-odd months, and no one can be blamed for wishing things were better. On the other hand, I truly believe that history judges you over the long haul. And the long haul has been almost 40 years. Biglang siguro na re-realize rin natin at napapakinabangan pa rin natin lahat ang mga iba't ibang project ng tatay ko, biglang naaalala. For example, I mean, central to the effort against COVID has really been the fight in the medical sphere. And so many of the hospitals, very simply, were set up during my dad's administration, even the RITM for infectious tropical disease, even the different lung, kidney, heart centers. Suddenly, they've become center stage, particularly the PGH, for example, where my mother was so deeply involved.
Mm-hmm. Senator Amy, I can hear ngayon pa lang plenty of reactions, both good and bad to what you're saying right now, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to make this as short as possible. No,
but I totally understand that. I am simply not the best judge. I am hardly, hardly detached. So I think some better political analysts should analyze what's happening exactly now. As I said time and again, this has come as a surprise to us, no matter how pleasant.
Okay. Another surprise, of course, political surprise, is that, syempre, people are saying talagang namamayagpag ang mga Marcos because your son, Matthew, running for re-election as governor of Ilocos Norte, Sandro Marcos, Bongbong's son, running for congressman, and both running against a Fariñas, no? So Matthew being challenged by Manong Rudy Fariñas, Sandro running against Ria Fariñas, and then you're practically knocking at the gates of Malacanang. Was there this, and very quickly, I don't have time, was there this conscious effort by your family, because a lot of people claim this is what you did, no, to rebrand yourself so that you would be, that you could get back into Philippine society, into Philippine politics? Meron bang ganon, nag-rebranding kayo or something?
Sa palagay ko, hindi naman talagang conscious effort or even any attempt at revisionism. I think all along, my brother and I have been working very quietly, very steadily at the different posts that we have held, whether as senator in his case, in my case, as governor, as congressman. We've just been plugging along, and perhaps the time has come because it's been over 30 years, and perhaps we have more perspective, more distance, and the points of view have changed. I think it's also been a question of our failure to tell our side of the story, not because we know better or that we want to pick a fight, but simply because the media has been so difficult in the past, we never really spoke up. And I think it's our duty to at least talk about the things that happened as we personally saw them, as we experienced them. This has been our failure, and certainly we should also tell our side of the story so that the new generations will hear a well-rounded version of history.
I can hear the reaction on social media right now. But anyway, Senator Amy Marcos, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope to see you again and your brother on the show very soon. Salamat. Thank you for being with us.
Yes,
more about
thank
the
you very
latest
much.
in 2022 when we return. This is Politics as Usual. Like I said earlier on the show, babalikan po natin si Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez, Chairman Sheriff Abas, Commissioner Rowena Guanzon, and Antonio Co are stepping down very soon. Meron na po ba tayong idea, no? Sino ba yung papalit? Or kung walang mga pangalan, if you don't want to share that with us, ano yung mga kailangan ng Comelec? Abogado ba? IT expert ba? Manager? Someone who can, run things on the ground?
Well, sa ngayon, wala naman tayong idea kung sinong ipapalit ng Pangulo, no? And it's always been that way. The President really doesn't tell the Comelec kung sinong gusto nilang gawin. I suppose at some point they will probably consult with the sitting commissioners, but again, all of that ultimately nasa prerogative ng Pangulo kung sinong i-appoint niya. Kung ano ang kailangan ng komisyon, well, that's a very good question. Ano? Marami nagsasabi, kailangan namin ng mga taong merong skills sa management at siguro sa pag-organize ng mga malawakang paggalaw ng mga tao at equipment at pag-oorganisa ng isang halalan, because a lot of people don't get it, but elections are actually a massive logistical exercise. You're making sure that all of the ballots are getting to the proper places and so on. So maganda kung merong ganyang klaseng abilidad yung ating
Of course, spokesperson James Jimenez, ang daming questions about what the final ballot phase will look like. It depends on who's on the final list of candidates, computerization, campaign guidelines, voting day. But given the way this pandemic has taken a very surprising turn with the Omicron variant, is it possible that we will have more voting via email or virtual voting, or anong mga possible na pwede mangyari para meron pa rin tayong mataas na voter turnout?
Well, sa tingin ko malabo na magkaroon pa tayo ng alternative means of voting. No? I think the ship has sailed for that. Maganda sana kung nagawa yan dati, pero again, hindi nga nagawa ng batas. So, we're going to stick with the in-person voting pa rin.
Okay, pero and then extended voting hours, but you will not consider voting over like 2 to 3 days?
No, we're not looking at multiple days for voting. In fact, voting hours are expected to be around 12 hours, no, from 6 to 6. In some cases, probably around 6 to 7 pa nga, 6 to 7 in the evening. So we will continue with the voting process indefinitely hanggang sa may tao, but we are not planning on holding 2 or 3 days of elections.
So ang kailangan na lang gawin ng tao ay ng mga botante to make sure na hawak na nila mga voter ID, halimbawa, voter documents, pag-isipan kung sino iboboto, and to check kung ano yung mga precinct number nila.
Yes, and kailangan dumating sila sa polling place by around 5:45. Yan ang yung latest. Kasi pag wala ka ng around 5:45, baka hindi ka na mailista eh. And kung hindi ka mailista, hindi ka makakaboto all the way to the end.
Spokesperson, I was about to call you Commissioner. James Jimenez, spokesman for the Commission on Elections. Thank you very much for joining us at the start and at the end of the show. Thank you very much. Stay safe. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or in a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital and other kinds of warfare. But we can talk about it here on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m.